Now, objective of this class is to make you understand. At the end of this class, you will be able to enlist the metabolic profile of brain, liver, RBC, muscle, adipose tissue, all these. Their metabolic pattern is different. Okay, brain mostly rely on carbohydrate. RBC rely on carbohydrate. Whereas muscle tissue in different time for its energy, it depends on different sources. At resting time, it takes up mostly fatty acid, whereas when it is working, it utilizes mostly carbohydrate. But in different state, it can change its source of energy. Okay, so you shall have to learn the metabolic profile of these different organs. Second, to understand the integration, you shall have to understand the mechanism already I have told, and you will be able to understand the mechanism of this integration, that will influence of one metabolism on the other, and mechanism is based on the hormone. Hormone plays a particular role, and that decides which particular metabolism which particular metabolic bolide will be utilized and which will not be utilized. So mostly role of hormones in metabolic regulation and integration. And in role of hormones, out of the different hormones, these three are the most important: insulin, glucagon, and adrenaline. You will be able to understand how these hormones are regulating metabolism and thereby controlling the, helping in integration of metabolism. Then we will discuss about metabolic changes in fed and fasting and starvation state. What happens in obesity and why at all there is obesity? What happens to the metabolism in diabetes mellitus, and what happens to the metabolism of these three carbohydrate, lipid, and amino acids when we do the exercise. So these three are the most important objective that you shall have to understand if you want to know about the integration of metabolism. Now, here, this picture depicts some pivotal points are there in metabolism. Here, you are seeing that glucose 6-phosphate is the pivot. Why I am telling you it is a pivot? The source of glucose 6-phosphate is glucose. It gets converted to glucose 6-phosphate by hexokinase or by glucokinase, depending upon where it is getting converted. So glucose gets converted. Now, this glucose 6-phosphate have different fate. It can undergo the glycogen synthesis pathway. It can undergo glycolytic pathway to form pyruvate. It can undergo some other pathway to form ribose phosphate, pentose phosphate pathway. So now which pathway it will take, it depends upon some regulatory factor. Okay, so these pivotal points are very important to decide upon which pathway these pivotal molecule will go, where it will reach, or which pathway it will follow. Similarly, here you see pyruvate. We know that pyruvate can be synthesized from lactate, pyruvate can be synthesized from alanine, pyruvate can be synthesized from glucose, and this pyruvate have multiple things. It can be converted to oxaloacetate, So it can go, or it can form lactate. So lactate and pyruvate, they are interconvertible depending upon whether it is in oxidized state or reduced state. Similarly, alanine and pyruvate, this interconversion depends upon amination state of the molecule. In deaminated state, it is pyruvate, and in aminated state, it is alanine. So they are interconvertible. And once pyruvate is formed, it also have different fate. It can be converted to oxaloacetate. Once it gets converted to oxaloacetate, so it can be a component of TCA cycle, and thereby it can enhance the TCA cycle. Or this oxaloacetate can enter into gluconeogenetic pathway. So alanine, through this pyruvate, can enter into gluconeogenetic pathway and can form glucose. So by this way, one component, that means glucose or amino acid, can be converted to other component. I have shown here alanine, one amino acid, how it gets converted to glucose. Similarly, pyruvate, it can be converted to acetyl-CoA. All of you know this. And this acetyl-CoA have multiple fates. This acetyl-CoA can be produced from pyruvate. It can be produced from fatty acid also by beta oxidation. And this acetyl-CoA have multiple fates. It can enter into TCA cycle to produce carbon dioxide and ATP. This acetyl-CoA can enter into fatty acid synthesis to produce fatty acid. It can get converted to HMG-CoA, and HMG-CoA can produce cholesterol or ketone bodies. So acetyl-CoA have multiple fates, and which fate will happen to acetyl-CoA depends upon our body need, and as the body need changes, our hormonal profile changes, and that decides which pathway it will undergo and which will be the end product. And this is the integration of metabolism. This is integration. So now for next few seconds, next few minutes, I shall try to recapitulate certain things. Okay, one thing. Let me see. Try to follow this. First, I shall tell you how carbohydrate can be converted to fatty acid. I shall just trace the pathway. Glucose, it can be converted to pyruvate by glycolytic pathway. Then this pyruvate can be converted to acetyl-CoA, link reaction, you call it, oxidative decarboxylation process. It will produce acetyl-CoA. And once the acetyl-CoA is produced, this acetyl-CoA can undergo fatty acid biosynthetic pathway to produce fatty acid. So carbohydrate molecule can be converted to fatty acid. Now, when we talk about fat, fat is nothing but glycerol plus fatty acid. So let us see our carbohydrate molecule, if it can produce glycerol also or not. So you know that glucose, when it undergoes glycolytic pathway, one of the intermediate is DHAP, dihydroxyacetone phosphate. This dihydroxyacetone phosphate, it has 3 carbon, which can be converted to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So this DHAP can enter into a metabolic pathway where it can form glycerol. Okay, so our glucose, so it can get converted to glycerol 3-phosphate, and it can get converted to fatty acid. And these fatty acid and glycerol can combine to form triacylglycerol. So by this time, you have understood that glucose can synthesize fat. by getting converted into glycerol and fatty acid, and these two then combine with each other to form fat. So glucose can be converted to fatty acid and fat. Glucose can be converted to cholesterol also. Glucose can be converted to acetyl-CoA, and then this acetyl-CoA can enter into this cholesterol biosynthetic pathway, and thereby glucose can be converted to cholesterol. Now let us see whether fat can be converted to glucose or not. As such, fat cannot convert, except fat has got, I have told you, two components. One is fatty acid and second component is glycerol. Fatty acid usually cannot, unless it is an odd chain fatty acid. But glycerol definitely can get activated to glycerol 3-phosphate in liver, and this glycerol 3-phosphate can be converted to dihydroxyacetone phosphate, and thereby it can enter into it is one of the intermediate of the glycolytic pathway, and then this DHAP can follow the gluconeogenetic pathway and can form glucose. So glycerol can form glucose. Similarly, odd chain fatty acid, it can produce propionyl as one of the components, and this propionyl CoA can enter into the TCA cycle in the form of succinyl CoA. So this metabolism already in the carbohydrate metabolism part we have discussed it. So propionyl CoA can be converted to succinyl CoA, and once it gets converted to succinyl CoA, it follows the part of the TCA cycle. Then in the form of malate, it can come out, and malate can take the gluconeogenetic pathway and can form glucose. And thereby propionyl CoA can form glucose. So odd chain fatty acid can be converted to glucose. So now I have told you fat can be converted to carbohydrate. Now let us see whether amino acid can be converted to glucose or not. Okay, amino acid, many of the amino acid, they can be converted to some of the intermediates of glycolytic pathway. One of that, most important example, one of that is alanine, which gets converted to pyruvate. Pyruvate is one of the intermediate in glycolytic pathway. Many amino acids, they can enter into the TCA cycle. So they can be converted to one of the intermediate of the TCA cycle. And once it gets converted into one of the intermediate of the TCA cycle, so these TCA cycle intermediates can enter into gluconeogenetic pathway, and thereby these amino acids can form glucose. But there are a few amino acids which cannot enter into TCA cycle in the form of its intermediate. They produce only acetyl-CoA. They are ketogenic amino acids. They cannot form, they cannot take part in gluconeogenetic pathway. So what I have told, glucose can be converted to fat. Fat in part, particularly glycerol and propionyl CoA, that can be converted to glucose. Then amino acid, it can be converted to glucose. Now let us see glucose, if it can be converted to amino acids or not. Glucose, definitely glucose can be converted to pyruvate by glycolytic pathway, and this pyruvate can undergo transamination reaction, and thereby it can acquire one amino group and can get converted to alanine. And not only this, these intermediates of TCA cycle also can be converted to amino acids. So non-essential amino acids, because why we call them non-essential? Because our body can produce these amino acids. That's why we tell it is not essential to take it through diet, because our body can produce. And the source, which is the source? Mostly glucose is the source. Glucose gives the carbon skeleton of the most of these non-essential amino acids. Essential amino acid definitely we need to take because our body cannot synthesize them. Okay, so non-essential amino acid can be produced from glucose. So all these things. So by this time you have understood that glucose can be converted to fat, glucose can be converted to amino acid. Second, fat can be converted to glucose, fat, mostly these part. Fat, can it be converted to amino acids? Definitely, because glycerol, part of the fat, it can take gluconeogenetic pathway. So this component, glycerol component, by this mechanism can also be converted into non-essential amino acids. Similarly, propionyl CoA also can. So fat can be converted to glucose and fat can be converted to some of the amino acids. So amino acid also can be converted to fat by getting converted to acetyl CoA, and this acetyl CoA can enter into fatty acid synthesis. So this amino acid also can be converted to fat. So these components are interconvertible. Definitely, the fatty acids, which are not odd chain fatty acid, even chain fatty acid, they cannot be converted to glucose, they cannot be converted to amino acids. But odd chain fatty acid, they can. Okay, so their interconvertibility I have discussed now. Now, after this, and this interconversion takes place through this pivotal molecule, through this acetyl CoA, which is a pivotal molecule, this pyruvate, which is a pivot, this glucose 6-phosphate, which is a pivot. Through this molecule, they interconvert with each other. Hope you have understood this part. Now, let us try to understand about the metabolic profile of brain. Okay, let us try to understand what exactly our brain metabolizes. Okay, brain for its function needs ATP, and this ATP cannot be stored, already you know. So every time brain needs the ATP, it needs to generate ATP, and generation of ATP, it can take place if there is already a storage of some fuel, but brain cannot store any fuel because brain is not the storage organ. So there is no fat storage there. There is no glycogen storage there. So brain need continuous supply of ATP, and for that it needs continuous supply of the material which can synthesize ATP. But the most important aspect of this metabolism in brain, this fatty acid, they cannot enter into brain because this blood-brain barrier, in the blood-brain barrier, there is no transporter for fatty acid. So fatty acids they cannot enter into our brain. So fatty acid cannot be the source of ATP in our brain. So that's why it mostly depend on glucose, and glucose enters into our brain through the transporter mechanism. Definitely there are transporter, and through this transporter it is not freely diffusible. There is a transporter through which glucose enters into our brain, and once it enters, it can undergo different metabolic pathway. And most important is glycolytic pathway followed by TCA cycle, because you know that brain cells, the neurons, they have mitochondria, they have cytoplasm, and cytoplasm have all the components of glucose metabolism, and TCA is present in mitochondria. So glucose can be converted to ATP by this metabolic pathway, and daily glucose requirement of our brain is approximately 120 grams. That is the total energy requirement of our brain. So major part, see how much food we take, how much glucose do we take. Whatever amount you take, major part goes to brain. So it is almost 120 grams per day. So you can imagine what is the this is a big amount. This big amount of carbohydrate is required for our brain function. This once it crosses the blood-brain barrier, then it enters the neuronal cell. And for entry of glucose into the neuronal cells, nerve cell, it is not insulin dependent. So it is non-insulin dependent glucose uptake by the nerve cells. And this non-insulin dependent glucose uptake takes place through GLUT3, glucose transporter 3. And already you know that GLUT4 is the insulin dependent transport that is mostly present in muscle and adipose tissue. So brain contains GLUT3, and through that glucose enters into the nerve cells. Then this undergoes glycolytic pathway followed by TCA cycle. It generates NADH and some substrate level phosphorylation, and thereby it gets the ATP. That is the main. So main source of energy is glucose for the brain. But when we starve, or when our food supply is limited, our brain can take up ketone bodies. Ketone bodies, fatty acid cannot enter into brain, but ketone bodies they can. And these ketone bodies, once it is taken up, this ketone body metabolism, succinyl-CoA transferase, this enzyme is also there in brain. So by CoA transferase, beta hydroxybutyrate, it enter into catabolic pathway, and then it once it enter into catabolic pathway, these ketone bodies, it produce acetyl-CoA, and that acetyl-CoA can produce ATP by entering into TCA cycle. And in fasting state, almost 20% of brain's energy comes from ketone bodies. And it has been found that if a person starves for a very long period, then up to 60% of the brain's energy may come from a ketone body, but that needs prolonged fasting, prolonged starvation, I should say. So in that condition, 60%, up to 60% of energy brain can derive up to 60% of energy from ketone body. Okay, so this is what is the metabolic profile of brain. Now from this carbohydrate, this glucose, it can convert into amino acid, and many amino acid also can enter into the brain. Okay, and this blood-brain barrier have got amino acid transport. And already you know that I think you know that why there is a brain defect when there is phenylketonuria. Because this transporter, amino acid transporter, in the phenylketonuria, phenylalanine concentration is very high. So phenylalanine, so this transporter, one transporter can transport more than one amino acid into the brain. So it is not one transporter for one amino acid. So a single transporter can transport more than one amino acid. So there are a few types of amino acid transporter across the blood-brain barrier. So the transporter which is used by phenylalanine is also used by other amino acids. So when phenylalanine concentration is very high, what will happen? Other amino acid which takes up that transporter cannot enter into the brain. And that's why there is deficiency of those amino acids in the brain, and that leads to neurological features of phenylketonuria. So amino acid can enter and can be metabolized in the brain. So this is about metabolic profile of brain. Now, coming to metabolic profile of muscles, most of the things you know. Muscle, it performs the exercise, and for doing this exercise, it needs ATP. So where from it gets the ATP? Its major fuel, glucose, when it is doing heavy exercise. Otherwise, in resting state, mostly fatty acid. And when someone is starving but doing this some of the activities, then muscle gets energy or ATP by using the ketone bodies. So this muscle can utilize glucose, fatty acids, and ketone bodies as major fuel. Okay, and because of this mechanical activity, you know that its need of ATP is tremendous, particularly when muscle is doing the exercise, and that cannot be met up by the rate of this fuel entry into the muscle. So that's why our muscle, what it does, it keeps reserve of this fuel. And this fuel is stored in the muscle in the form of glycogen. And glycogen is broken when our muscle does the exercise. But one thing, because muscle needs energy, so much of energy, so muscle is differentiated to consume energy, but not to deliver glucose. Muscle's purpose, our purpose of muscle is not that. Muscle is not differentiated that way. Muscle is for performing work, mechanical work. So that's why muscle's job is not to deliver glucose to other organ. That's why glucose 6-phosphatase is not there. Because glucose 6-phosphatase, what it does, it converts glucose 6-phosphate into glucose. And once it is converted to glucose, it can come out of the muscle. And if it comes out, then this cannot provide the energy that is required by the muscle for its mechanical work. Muscle doesn't want that. That's why nature has not given glucose 6-phosphatase. Okay. And already I have told you, resting muscle, its fuel need is mostly met by the fatty acids. Okay. So fatty acids enter into the muscle, then it undergoes beta oxidation and produce the ATP. Okay. But during activity, what happens that you need to understand. During activity depends upon what is the level of activity. Okay. If activity is moderate, then naturally what will happen? There will be glycolysis. So glycogen will be broken down into lactate. And this lactate gets converted to acetyl CoA and is utilized by TCA cycle. But when our muscle performs severe exercise, vigorous exercise, what happens? Then oxygen supply to the muscle cannot be met. The demand is more, oxygen demand is more than that of oxygen supply, than that our body can supply. Okay, so there is an oxygen lack. Because of this oxygen lack, what happens? Oxidative pathway, aerobic pathway is blocked. So muscle can undergo glycolytic pathway up to lactate, up to pyruvate, but this pyruvate cannot enter into acid, cannot be converted to acetyl-CoA. So it gets converted to lactate, and this lactate enters into liver, and in liver this lactate once again gets converted to glucose and comes back. I shall tell you about this cycle. So in severe exercise, anaerobic glycolysis occurs. Not only that, whenever severe exercise it is doing, it converts pyruvate into part of the pyruvate into alanine, which goes to liver, and in liver this alanine gets converted to glucose and comes back to muscle once again. So this is that. So pyruvate that is produced by anaerobic glycolysis may have two phases. Alanine can be converted to pyruvate can be converted to alanine goes to liver gives it back in the form of glucose, or the same pyruvate can be converted to lactate, goes to liver, and once again comes back in the form of glucose. So in severe, when muscle does the vigorous exercise, this happens. There is little difference in heart muscles. Heart muscles, what happens? Because it needs to do continuous work. That's why mitochondrial number is huge in comparison to skeletal muscle, because it needs to work continuously. And that is supplied by the mostly glucose and other things also it can take. So what you have come to know by this, so aerobic metabolism during that time, fatty acid, ketone bodies, and lactate also can be used by this heart muscle. So heart muscle use all the three things. Okay. Now, what I was telling about this, whenever muscle does vigorous exercise, glycogen is broken down. And this part of the glycogen, which is broken down into pyruvate, because of anaerobic glycolysis, it gets converted to lactate. This lactate comes to blood and then reaches liver, and liver converts this lactate to glucose, and this glucose comes to blood, and this glucose is once again taken by muscle. So there is a cycle going on. This cycle is known as Cori's cycle. Okay, now coming to about adipose tissue profile, metabolic profile of adipose tissue. Okay, adipose tissue also mostly takes up glucose, and glucose can be by glycolytic pathway, it can be converted to DHAP. So what is the main function of adipose tissue? Adipose tissue, it stores mostly fat. And what is fat? Fat is glycerol plus fatty acid, combination of these three. So for synthesis of fat, it needs glycerol, 3-phosphate, and it needs fatty acid. And both of those two are provided by the glucose. So adipose tissue, here glucose uptake is mostly insulin dependent. That means when we take food, our blood glucose level is high and insulin level is high. This adipose tissue takes up glucose by GLUT4, through GLUT4 route. It takes up. And once it takes up, this glucose gets converted to glycerol, 3-phosphate, and this glucose also produce acetyl-CoA to produce fatty acid. So fatty acid and glycerol, they combine with each other and to form triacylglycerol, which is true. You shall have to remember, glucose is one source of fat for this triacylglycerol synthesis in adipose tissue. Other source is VLDL. VLDL is rich in triacylglycerol, and whenever it is metabolized, so this lipoprotein lipase, it delivers fatty acid. So this fatty acid is taken up by the adipose tissues and combines with this glycerol phosphate, and thus lipids that is present in VLDL is stored in adipose tissue in the form of triacylglycerol. This is when energy supply is abundant. That means when we are in fed state. But when we are starving, or when we have not taken food, so what will happen? In blood, glucose supply is less. Immediately, for source of energy, as a source of energy, this triacylglycerol, it is broken down. And it is broken down into glycerol and fatty acid. Fatty acid comes out, and by albumin it is transported to the different tissues. And you know that major part of the fatty acid is taken up by the liver and other tissues, muscles, and other tissues also can take up fatty acid, but not the brain. So this goes and provides energy. So when we are in fasting state, that means when our body has not adequate energy supply from glucose, this fatty acid comes and provides us energy. But remember, this glycerol, which is produced in adipose tissue, cannot be converted to glycerol 3-phosphate in adipose tissue because glycerol kinase enzyme is not present there. Glycerol kinase is present only in liver. So this glycerol comes in blood and then goes to liver, and in liver it gets converted to glycerol 3-phosphate, and glycerol 3-phosphate may have different fate. It can synthesize fat, triacylglycerol. It can enter into gluconeogenetic pathway. It can enter into glycolytic pathway. So this can have different fates. So this is the metabolism of adipose tissue. Now coming to about RBC. RBC peculiarity is RBC. You know that by the time this erythroblast or the progenitor cell, which is present in our bone marrow, gets converted to RBC, by this process, the mitochondria which was present in the progenitor cells or the erythroblast, by the time erythroblast gets converted into RBC, all the mitochondria disappears from the cell. So RBCs doesn't have any mitochondria. So mitochondria is not there, means TCA cycle cannot take place. So RBC is totally dependent on glycolysis for ATP synthesis. So it takes up glucose, and here also glucose uptake is non-insulin dependent. It doesn't need the presence of insulin. Without insulin, it can take up glucose. So once glucose enters, it undergoes glycolysis, and in glycolysis, once again, its fate is it produces lactate, and lactate goes to liver. So this is the metabolic profile of RBC, how RBC gets ATP. Not only that, this glucose, whenever glycolytic pathway is taking place, main function of RBC is to deliver oxygen. So another molecule is required, 2,3-BPG, all of you know. And through a bypass pathway of this glycolytic pathway, it produces 2,3 BPG. And this BPG helps in delivery of oxygen from the RBC. So glucose anaerobic glycolysis takes place. Not only that, there is a loop or the bypass pathway which synthesizes 2,3-BPG that is only present in RBC. That loop is present. Another thing, glucose can be converted to NADPH by pentose phosphate pathway. And why this is required? Because RBC's main function is to transport oxygen and it undergoes tremendous oxidative stress. And to combat that oxidative stress, GSH is required, glutathione is required, reduced form of glutathione is required. Otherwise, there will be hemolysis. So, glucose in RBC usually have three phases. It can be converted to lactate to form ATP, or without formation of ATP, it can undergo glycolytic pathway, but just to produce 2,3-BPG. That is second phase. And third phase is it can enter into pentose phosphate pathway to produce NADPH. Okay, this is about RBC. Now coming to about liver metabolism. Liver metabolism, liver is a organ where most of the molecules are metabolized. And see what happens. And most of the pivots plays very important role in liver. Liver have glycogen storage. This glycogen is synthesized from glucose, and liver cell in well-fed state, it takes up glucose. Okay, it takes up glucose, and this glucose entry is once again not insulin dependent because it is not GLUT4, it is GLUT2 once again. So glucose is taken up by the liver by non-insulin dependent manner. Once it enters, glucose, when it is abundant, concentration of glucose is high. And when the concentration of glucose is high, in liver cytoplasm, glucokinase is there. And you know that glucokinase is active when glucose concentration is very high. So when the glucose, when we are in fed state, intercellular glucose concentration is high. So glucokinase is active, so it gets converted to glucose 6-phosphate. This glucose 6-phosphate can produce glycogen in our body. Okay, and this glucose 6-phosphate also can enter into glycolytic pathway to synthesize pyruvate and acetyl-CoA. This acetyl-CoA in liver, when acetyl-CoA is abundant, it takes up the synthetic pathway, produce cholesterol, it produce fatty acid, and thereby triacylglycerol. This cholesterol and triacylglycerol, they are packaged in the form of VLDL, and that comes out of the liver. So this synthetic VLDL synthesis takes place here, and that mostly occurs from the glucose. Then this TCA cycle can also take place through this pathway. This acetyl-CoA can enter into TCA cycle and can produce ATP. Not only that, this acetyl-CoA, if it wants to synthesize, this, you know that this acetyl-CoA, it is produced in mitochondria, and this cholesterol synthesis and fatty acid synthesis, it takes part in it takes part in cytoplasm, whereas the acetyl-CoA is produced in mitochondria. From mitochondria, acetyl-CoA comes out, and for that it takes the help of this TCA cycle. It gets attached with, combines with oxaloacetate, it forms citrate, then citrate comes out, and there is ATP citrate lyase, and that produces acetyl-CoA. And once it is in cytoplasm, once again it can be taken up for the fatty acid synthesis or the cholesterol synthesis. So in well-fed state, for different synthesis of different molecule, glucose is utilized in liver. Okay, and this glucose also produce NADPH. And this NADPH, why liver needs this NADPH? Because in liver, so many synthetic pathways are taking place: cholesterol biosynthesis, fatty acid biosynthesis, nucleotide biosynthesis. All this biosynthesis needs NADPH. That's why pentose phosphate pathway is there. Not only that, nucleic acid synthesis needs ribose phosphate, and that comes from pentose phosphate pathway. So all these synthesis takes place, and glucose plays a very important role there. But remember, when we are not in fed state, we are in fasting state, what happens? This glycogen then breaks into glucose 6-phosphate, and there is one enzyme known as glucose 6-phosphatase, which converts glucose 6-phosphate into glucose, and that provide glucose so that other tissues can get energy. So what you are seeing, liver metabolically can act as storage organ. Glycogen is stored there. And why it is storing glycogen? Because it wants to provide fuel for the other tissues. Okay, so it provides. Now, liver also can metabolize the different amino acid. Most of the amino acid, they are metabolized here, and this amino acid can produce nucleotide. These amino acids are utilized for the different liver protein biosynthesis. This amino acid can undergo transamination and can be converted to pyruvate. This pyruvate can produce glucose. That glucose can come out to provide energy. Pyruvate can enter into acetyl-CoA, can produce lipid, can produce ATP. Even this pyruvate can enter from amino acid. It can, through this pyruvate, can produce glucose, enter into neoglycogenetic pathway. So through this neoglycogenetic pathway also, it is trying to provide energy to the other tissues. Okay, so this is amino acid metabolism. Now coming to about fatty acid metabolism. Already I have told, it can synthesize fat, and it comes out, fat comes out is packaged in the form of lipoprotein, VLDL, and it can come in the circulation. Also, when we are in starving state, almost 80% of the fatty acid that is liberated by our adipose tissues are taken up by our liver. And what liver does, by taking the fatty acid that comes from adipose tissue in the form of free fatty acid, it is taken up, and then it undergoes beta oxidation to form acetyl-CoA. And by this pathway, it produces huge amount of NADH. This NADH is enough for ATP need, that can fulfill the ATP need of hepatocyte. So TCA cycle is inhibited because of high level of NADH. Now what this acetyl-CoA does then? This acetyl-CoA can undergo ketone body synthesis. So these ketones are energy source for many tissues, including brain. So you can think of liver as giver. It gives energy to other tissues. So it keeps on donating energy. Whatever is required only takes up that much of energy, and other part it donates for survival and performance of the other tissues. So this is how liver lipid metabolism occurs. Okay, so let us summarize the metabolic profile of liver. So it provides fuel to brain, muscle, and other organs in the form of glucose, or in the form of ketone bodies, or even amino acids. It has glucose group 2 for taking up of glucose. It has glucokinase, thereby it traps glucose in the form of glycogen. And this glucose can provide acetyl-CoA, which can synthesize fatty acid, cholesterol, and VLDL. This glucose can undergo pentose phosphate pathway for this synthetic, which is required, pentose phosphate pathway, which produce NADPH, which is required for this synthetic pathway. Muscles gives lactate, and these lactate are converted to glucose by gluconeogenetic pathway, and thereby provides glucose back to the muscle. It can take up fatty acid, convert into acetyl-CoA, thereby ketones, which provides, and this occurs mostly in fasting state, and thereby it provides energy. Dietary amino acids, it goes for the mostly protein synthesis. Not only that, it can produce keto acid, and this keto acid can provide glucose and fatty acid. So by now you have understood that our different organs have different metabolic profile. Brain utilizes mostly energy, ATP, from the glucose. Liver, it can utilize glucose, it can utilize fatty acid. Depending upon the feeding state, it utilizes those. Our adipose tissue, it is a storage organ. Whenever we are in abundance, it keeps on synthesizing adipose tissue. When we are in deficiency state, fasting state, it provides energy in the form of fatty acid and glycerol. So different organ is playing different role. And individual organ, what is the metabolic profile, that I have told you. So let us stop here today, and rest of the thing I shall tell in the next class. Okay. So there you will understand in different conditions how the metabolism of these organs and of these molecule changes, and why that change occurs. What is the explanation of those changes? So let us conclude here. So you have seen that there are pivotal molecules. Using those pivotal molecules, interconversion of fat, lipid, and amino acid take place. This is one of the important take-home message from this lecture. Second thing is different organ need, all the organ needs fuel, and source of fuel is different for different organ. And depending upon what is the function of that organ, metabolic profile differs. Liver has got synthetic function, so it keeps on synthesizing different molecules. Muscles, it performs the mechanical function. It keeps on utilizing glucose to produce energy so that we can perform this mechanical function. Adipose tissue, storage organ, so it keeps on storing fat, and whenever there is need, it delivers. So depending upon the differentiation of function, their metabolic processes also alters. Depending upon the function, their metabolic need is different, and accordingly this metabolic pathway during the differentiation process of differentiation means one zygote are differentiated into different cells, produce different organ. So this process is called differentiation. So muscle cell is differentiated for performing mechanical function, and to perform mechanical function, whatever metabolic pathways are required, those pathways are only expressed in this in these organs. So that's all about today's lecture, and thank you. In next class, once again we'll meet. So you can log off now. If you have question, you can put 1 or 2 questions. I can try to see if I can see any question, then I shall like to answer those. If anybody has question, you can, otherwise okay, there is no question. I'm not seeing any question. Okay, let me see the dashboard. Okay, no, there is no question. So I can stop here. Okay, you can log out now.